Okay, so we're going to run through payroll and employee setup now. This will be slightly Australianized because that's the system I have in front of me, but in most cases the screens are all going to be very similar for other versions. It may just be different tax details, which is not something I'm going to talk about too much anyway. I'm also aware there are some countries that don't run payroll through Xero as well. So one thing to note, which I did mention before in the settings video, but just to remind you, you will need a Payroll Access for this. So when your user is created, the person setting you up can tick to give you Payroll Access. If they don't give you that, when you click this drop-down option, you won't see these tabs. And when you click through, there'll be a little video just giving you an overview of the payroll. So if that's what you see, just be aware. The reason for that is that your user doesn't have the required permissions. So on the basis that everyone can now see this, I'm going to first show you the overview, and then I'm going to go through employee setup, and then finally I'll go through pay runs and timesheets in a second video. So here at the top I've got a general help area where I can have a look at, and I can see some payroll defaults, and I can also see some employee addition. So here at the top I've got some help, and I can hide this if I need to, which I'm going to do just now because I'm going to talk through most of the options that are in there. So in this overview I can see any draft pay runs and previous pay runs. I can see some leave applications as well, and I can see some upcoming leave. So before I go in and show you how to set up an employee, I'm just going to drop back to the settings area, and under my favorites I've got payroll settings. So within here I can set up the accounts that I use for payroll. So this will be your default account that your liabilities, super and expense go to. I can also set up some payslip options. You'll need to set up pay items for those items that you're going to pay employees, whether they're earnings, deductions, leave or reimbursements. This is the most important area. A really common question that I get asked by clients is that they've gone into the payroll to set up an employee and they don't have a pay item that they need to pay them, and you can't create a new one from inside payroll. Calendars is another option. So you can set up calendars for potentially if you pay some people monthly, some people weekly, or in this case some people fortnightly and some people weekly. You can set up the calendars in here. Be aware you will have to have at least one calendar set up to start a payroll. Finally, you've got super options or pension options in other countries where you can set up funds that people get paid to. So all of these areas must be looked at before we go in and into the employee areas to set one up. So in the employee setup, I can see my employee listing in here, and I can add employees if I need to. Out of interest, this is also where we can tick an employee and then invite them into the portal if we wish. So from the portal, they can make leave applications, do expense claims, and also download their pay slips at any time. So in here, I've got a fairly obvious set of fields for filling in information on my employee. So for the moment, I'm just going to go ahead and enter that in. So with my employee set up there, I'm just going to click Save, and this will open up the other tabs for setting up information. So I click Save, and my information's come through to this first details area. I can then go through here and set up all the other different areas in order to put all information in required to have the file on this employee and also pay them. So I'll go through them one at a time here and just talk you through some of the things to be aware of. So in employment, we can put a start date in. We've got classifications and groups if you use employee groups. We've got the payroll calendar that I mentioned a moment ago in the settings. We can put an ordinary earnings rate in. So this is particularly useful if you're going to use timesheets, which I'll show you in the next video. You can also tick whether this person is authorized to approve leave or authorized to approve timesheets. So if another employee puts a timesheet in on the portal or puts a leave application, can, in this case, Dan, approve that? Finally, I can put a super membership here as well. So going through now, I've got tax declaration, so I can put information in here for tax file number. I can also tick various different tax options if someone is paying more tax, less tax, has student loans, things like that. On the leave tab, I can put a leave application in. So this is very useful prior to doing a pay run. So for Dan here, if I put in a leave application saying he needs 2 days leave next week, when I get to the pay run next week, those 2 days will automatically be in there and I won't have to remember that he took leave in this week. Bank accounts is where you can set up details for the wage to be paid to. So you can put in bank accounts with statement name details, account numbers, BSB and account names. Pay template is then where you add in any pay items that will be in this person's pay slip by default. So if this person's on salary and they get paid pretty much the same amount every single month, then you can put that in as an earnings line. You can put their super or pension in. You can put their leave accruals in. And it saves you having to type it every single time you go through. So there's pay templates in QuickBooks and MyOb as well, so this should be something that's fairly familiar. I did mention it before, but just another little note. If you haven't set the pay item up in the payroll settings, it will not come up in here. Xero has a very good payroll help video as well that runs through setting these up in detail. So all I'll do for the moment is I'll put some example default lines in. So this is what it looks like when it's filled out. So I've just clicked add earnings line, add super, add leave, and you can put more in. So for those of you who are in trades or union businesses, you may have allowances, travel, fares, various other things. Again, that's not something I can advise on how to set it up from an accounting point of view, but it's all fairly self-explanatory through here. So in this case for Dan, when I go in and run a pay run, it's automatically going to give him 38 hours based on this salary. It's going to put money into the super or pension fund, and it's also going to give him leave accruals as well. So I'll give that a save for now. The final information in here for the opening balances is only really used if you're converting across from another system. So you would put in someone's opening balances of how much leave they have as of their first pay run. I'm not going to put any information in here because, again, this is something that's fairly self-explanatory and can be assisted by an accountant or a bookkeeper. So what we'll move on to in the next video is we'll look through putting a pay run in, and we'll also look at timesheet options.